I'd first like to start by acknowledging the land in which we gather and paying my respect to their elders, past, present, and emerging. We heard a little bit this morning from various speakers about the urgent need for the climate action that we've been waiting to see for decades. In particular, the financing that this action deserves. So I want to take this opportunity that I have today to expand on that from the perspective of a Pacific Islander. For communities on the front line of the climate crisis, loss and damage financing is critical. It is our regions and people with considerable development constraints with the highest vulnerability that are suffering the disproportionate impacts of the climate crisis. Loss and damage financing is not aid, nor is it a handout. It is money owed to frontline communities who are facing the brunt of the climate crisis that they did not create and the developed countries have profited from. Countries like Australia, who have historically and still to this day profit from the climate hands that are feeding the crisis we're feeling, that are constantly still profiting from the fossil fuel industry. So I'd like to acknowledge that Indigenous and First Nations communities of this very country are amongst those frontline communities who are owed loss and damage financing. Loss and damage addresses historical impacts and is set up to help frontline communities rebuild, relocate, and preserve what we have left. This is why I stand here calling on the Australian government to step up on climate financing, meeting their fair share of the $4 billion pledge and making up for lost time, as we know that this government is already behind on the contributions that they've promised. Pledges and promises of loss and damage is not action. It only becomes action when that financing hits the bank accounts of the communities that need it the most. This is why I also call on financial institutions like the World Bank to disperse this financing to local communities and not just beneficiary governments. An operational loss and damage fund that is accessible to villages, tribes, schools, and local communities is not only vital, but long overdue. Lastly, loss and damage is not climate justice without a phase out of coal, oil, and gas. There is no economic exchange that can replace losing entire islands, entire nations, and people's entire worlds. Climate financing will simply become blood money if not coupled with urgent mitigation to meet our 1.5 target. This is a commitment that Australia needs to make to our region, to its citizens, especially while putting in a bid to host the first COP within the Pacific Islands, within the Pacific Ocean. Loss and damage is a conversation beyond financing. That's why I've chosen to speak about it today. It is about justice. It is about right and wrong. It is the difference between failing frontline communities and finally finding shared humanity to take care of those who have been devastated the most. So I know it can sometimes feel like an abstract or a black and white issue, loss and damage. It almost becomes desensitized to us as a buzzword in the climate community, but it is of such importance. It's of utmost importance. It could mean the difference between simple climate action and true climate justice.